Recording the session. And so, hi everybody. Thank you so much for having me this morning. As Vinodh mentioned, my name is Brian Moore, and I'm going to be talking about building interactive business dashboards. So Tableau has some incredibly powerful tools for interacting with your data, and I'm going to share some tips and tricks for leveraging some of those tools to design dashboards that are more flexible, more engaging, more powerful, and really just a lot more fun to use. So I'm going to be going through everything pretty fast, but everything I'm going to cover today is written up in detail with step-by-step instructions on sonsofhierarchies.com. And I'll drop a link right after the presentation to that blog post. All right, so how many times have you been in a requirements meeting that looked something like this? So some of your stakeholders want a high-level overview showing the overall state of the business. Others want a ton of detail and different cuts of the data to be able to answer very specific questions. And oftentimes what you end up with is just a monstrosity that has 15 to 20 different dashboards that takes weeks or even months to build. And a little while later, you realize that nobody's actually using it. So it ended up being too busy and complex for the people that wanted a high level summary. And for the people that wanted a lot of detail, the questions they're trying to answer a month ago aren't the same questions they're trying to answer now. So I'm a huge proponent of self-service analytics, rather than building a dashboard that explicitly answers the questions people have now. I'd rather provide them with a tool that they can use to look up the answers to those questions and other questions that might come up in the future. And that's kind of what this session is about. Some tips and tricks for building really flexible dashboards. So here's kind of a basic KPI dashboard that we'll use for today's session, and just going to start with a quick demo. So first off, you can use either of these bar charts over on the left side here to filter the rest of the dashboard. So you can click on a region to filter the dashboard by region. You can click on a subcategory to filter by subcategory. And using actions to filter your dashboard not only looks a lot nicer than using quick filters, but it's better for performance, and it just generally provides a more satisfying user experience. So there are several methods you can use to do this. You can use filter actions, parameter actions, set actions. I tend to use either parameters or sets just because they give you a little bit more flexibility, and you can leverage those selected values and calculations and text boxes and tooltips and things like that, where you can't with a filter action. You'll also notice that when I click on a mark, you don't get that kind of weird default highlighting that normally happens in Tableau, that kind of washed out coloring. And I'll show you how to do that as well. And then this next section is kind of the meat of the presentation, and it has to do with these bands across the top here. So I use bands all the time in my business dashboards to, give a quick prominent view of the metric totals. I usually like to include some type of growth indicator for context. So here we have these up and down arrows showing the positive or negative growth from the previous period. What I also like to do with these bands is use them to drive actions that change the entire dashboard, so you can deep dive into each individual metric. So right now, if you look at the dashboard, you'll see we have sales by region, sales by subcategory, by state, over time, manufacturer. But if I click on this profit band, now you can see all of these views have changed to view profit. You can click on units sold to view them all by units sold, and same with the on-time shipment percentages. So we'll walk through how to do that in today's session. Something else I have in this dashboard and in the blog post, but I'm not sure if we'll have time to cover how to do them today. But again, you can view the step-by-step instructions on the blog post. Is I have these little these little arrows here that allow you to scroll through records. So when you have a dimension that has a lot of values, having them all on the dashboard can really hurt performance, especially if there's thousands of unique values. So a pretty a pretty common thing to do to get around this is to limit it to just the top N records. So in this case, just the top 10. But what if your users want to view the next 10 or the 10 after that or the 10 after that? So this gives them the ability to view the records 10 at a time without hindering performance. And personally, I think it looks a lot nicer than a scroll bar. And then finally, anytime you're building a dashboard that has a lot of interactivity, it's really important that your users actually know how to use the dashboard. So that's a huge barrier for adoption and one of the more common causes I've seen for low usage on a dashboard, just not knowing how to use it. So training is important, but you may not always be available to train new users or answer questions. So that's why I like to include an instructions overlay like this. So it's built into the dashboard. Users can click on it, see all of the areas of the dashboard that are interactive and kind of what they can expect out of those interactions. So that's all I'm going to cover today. This is kind of a baseline model that I use for flexible business dashboards. It can support a lot of different users from different departments and from varying levels of the organization. But this is really just a jumping off point. There's so much more you could add to this dashboard to make it even more flexible and more powerful. But for now, we'll focus on what's here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to try to leave a few minutes at the end for questions. But if we run out of time, like Vinodh said, we can follow up and answer them, or feel free to reach out to me on Twitter or LinkedIn, and I'll share my contact information at the end of the presentation. All right, so on to our first tip. So here we're going to filter the entire dashboard from this region worksheet. So I'm going to go to that sheet. And the first thing I'm going to do is create a parameter for the region. Just in the interest of time, I've already created all of the calculations and parameters, but as I go through these, I'll display them on the screen. And then again, you can follow along on the blog post later on. So I have a parameter here, just called region parameter. And it's just a string parameter. And I've set the current value to the word all. Next, we're going to create a calculated field for our filter. I've called this region selected. And this just says that our region parameter equals that default value of all, or the region parameter equals a specific region. And this is what we're going to use for our filter. So I'm going to go to one of the worksheets that I want to filter from this sheet. So I'll go to this sales by subcategory. You can drag that region selected field onto filter. I'm going to filter to true. And then I'm also going to go to apply to worksheets. And I'm going to apply that filter to pretty much every worksheet other than the one that's driving the action, which is that metric by region worksheet. All right, so now the filter is in place. We just need to add a dashboard action to update the parameter. So I'm going to go up to dashboard actions. I'm going to add a parameter action, change parameter, and we'll call this select region. Under source sheets, I want to select just my region worksheet. And here's a quick tip here. When you're in the action screen, you can just click and drag to highlight all of the worksheets and then hit the box to uncheck them all. You can also use Control or Shift to highlight multiple. But I want to select just my metric by region worksheet. Gonna run this on select. I want to update my region parameter. And I'm going to pass the region field to that parameter. So now if I go back to my dashboard, when I click on a region, you'll see that the rest of the dashboard will filter to just that specific region. But there are still a couple of issues here. So we have the filter in place. But first off, we still have this weird kind of default highlighting that happens in Tableau. It's not terribly noticeable on this dashboard because the gray kind of matches the color scheme, but that is not usually the case. But also look what happens if I click on this mark again. So now the entire dashboard is filtered to the central region, but there's really no way for the user to know that other than, maybe if they were looking at the map, because all of these marks that appear like they're not selected. So the first thing we're gonna do is, oh, actually, and one other thing, as it stands now, there's no way to remove the filter. So I'm filtered to the West region, but I can't get back to view the entire US. Recently, Tableau did add an option where you can clear the selection and set it back to a specific value. So if I wanted to set this back to all, I could use it this way. But if you have multiple sheets in your dashboard that are driving actions, this isn't going to work, because look what happens. So say I click on the East region, I can click on the East region again to remove the filter. But if I click on the East region and then say I click somewhere else in the dashboard, you'll see that filter is removed, which we don't want. So I'm going to go ahead and undo that. So I'm going to keep the clearing the selection value to keep current value, and we're going to use a calculated field instead to remove the filter. So if I go back to my worksheet, I'm going to create another calculation. I call this region remove. And this is just saying if the region we click on is the value that's already in the parameter, then set the parameter back to all. Otherwise, pass the region to the parameter. And we'll bring that to detail. Go back to my dashboard. We'll edit this action, and then instead of the region field, we're going to use the region remove field. So now you can click once. Oh, sorry. So you can click once on a region to filter it, and then click on that region again to remove the filter. All right, so the next thing we want to do is tackle that default highlighting. So there's a couple different ways you can do this, and I'll cover a couple different methods throughout the presentation. But for this first one, we're going to use a highlight action. So I'm going to create a calculated field. I just called it HL for highlight, and it's just a blank value. So just open and closed quotations. And then we'll drag that to detail. I'll go back to my dashboard, the actions, and I'm going to add a highlight action. And we'll call this region highlight. So under my source sheets, I want to select just my metric by region worksheet. Under the target sheets, I'm going to select that same worksheet. We want to run the action on select. And under target highlighting, choose selected fields, and we're just going to select that highlight field. So now back in my dashboard, if I click on one of these regions, you can see that the filter is applied, but we don't have that weird default highlighting. And how that works is it essentially just tricks Tableau into highlighting every one of the marks instead of just the one that you click on. Okay, so this is pretty close, but we still can't tell which mark is selected other than just this thin black bar around or this thin black box around the bar. So we're going to use color just to make it really clear which region is selected. So we're going to take that region selected field that we had made earlier. I'll just show that again. And that's just saying either the region parameter equals all, which means no region is selected, or a specific region is selected. And we'll just drag that to color. So now you can edit the colors however you want for the selected and unselected marks. In my case, I have when it's true, I have it set to that kind of base blue that it started. And then when it's false, I set it to the same color as the background of that worksheet. So you can see when I go to my dashboard. So the rest of the marks, the non-selected marks, just kind of fade into the background, but you can really make those whatever color you want. All right, so that's it for this first tip, and then we're gonna move on to the KPI selectors. All right, so I'm going to start with just kind of these basic bands. Just again, in the interest of time, I'm only going to cover the procedure for 2 of these bands, but it's going to be the exact same for all 4. So I'm going to start with my sales band. And the first thing we're going to do is create a calculated field for each of our bands. And all these are going to be, so for sales, I'm just going to call it sales, and it's just going to be the word sales. I'm going to drag that to detail. I'm going to do the same thing on my profit band. So I have a calculated field here called profit, and it's just the word profit. We'll drag that to detail as well. Next, we're going to create a parameter for our KPIs. Let's see. So I have a parameter here called metric select. This is going to be a string parameter, and you'll see the list of values. These are going to align to those 4 calculated fields that we have. So this profit, quantity, sales, and shipping. You'll see here we have profit, quantity, sales, and shipping. When you're doing this, you could also use all for the allowable values. The only reason I used a specific list is because I wanted to alias some of these fields, and this is a nice, easy way to do that. All right, so next we're going to create a calculated field that's going to contain a different metric depending on what is set in our parameter. So I have a field here called metric calc, and it's just a simple case statement. So it's when this metric parameter equals sales, then we're going to return the sum of sales. When it's profit, we're going to return the sum of profit. When it's quantity, we'll return the sum of quantity. And when it's shipping, we're going to use this ship pass percentage, which is a separate calculation that I built ahead of time. All right, now the next step is in each one of our worksheets. So starting with this first one. So instead of having, sum of sales or sum of profit or whatever you normally have in this view, we're going to use this metric calc. So here on our bar chart, we're going to have metric calc on columns. Same in this bar chart, we'd have it on columns. In our map, we would have metric calc on color. In our area chart, we would have metric calc on rows. And then the last thing we need to do is add a parameter action, or sorry, add a series of parameter actions. So it'd be one for each band to update that, that parameter. So go to dashboard actions, change parameter, and starting with sales, we'll have one called select sales. On our source sheets, we're going to select just our sales band. We want to update the metric select parameter, and we want to pass that field that's just the word sales to that parameter. Then we'll do another one called select profit. This is going to be the same thing, except we're going to use from our profit band. We want to update the same parameter, but we want to pass the word profit to the parameter. So now when I click on sales, these will all display sales. And when I click on profit, all of the worksheets will display profit. So we still have a few things to do here. First, again, we have that kind of default highlighting that happens in Tableau, except with text marks. Here it shows up as kind of a blue box instead of the washed out color. Again, it doesn't look too bad in this dashboard because it kind of matches the color scheme, but that's not always going to be the case. So in the previous tip, I had shown you how to get rid of that default highlighting with the highlight action, but let's look what happens if we try to use that here on these text marks. So I'm going to go to my highlight action and I'm going to add my sales and profit worksheets to that highlight action. Oh. Sorry, give me 1 second. Oh, those are actually the wrong worksheets. Sorry. So profit and sales. Yeah, so now instead of getting rid of the blue highlighting, it adds a yellow highlighting to the other box, which is kind of worse than where we started. So we don't want to use the highlight action. It works great in most cases, but one of the big limitations there is on text marks. It does this instead of getting rid of the highlighting. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that. And I'm going to show you another trick for getting around that default highlighting. So I'm going to go to my sales worksheet. I'm going to create 2 calculated fields, one called 0. It's just going to be the value of 0, and one called 1, and it's just going to be a value of 1. And I'm going to drag both of those to detail. Do the same thing on my other band. I'm going to go back to my dashboard, and I'm going to add a filter action. So this first one is going to be for the sales band, called sales HL. Under source sheets, I'm going to select the worksheet that I'm clicking on. So in this case, it's a tip 2 band sales. Under target sheets, rather than selecting it from the list here, we're actually going to select it from the drop down. We want to run this on select. Under target filters, we're going to choose selected fields, add filter, and we're going to choose our 0 and 1 fields. Hit OK, and then I'm going to do the same thing for my profit band. So we'll call this profit highlight. Run on select, add the target filter. And now when we click on these bands, you see we no longer have that big blue box. But again, similar to the tip number 1, we've removed the default highlighting, but now you can't really tell which band is selected. And just like before, we're going to use color to remedy this. Okay, so for each one of my bands, I'm going to create another calculated field. So here I have one called KPI selected sales, and it's just a simple Boolean calc that says our metric select parameter equals sales. And we'll drag that to color. Do the same thing on profit. I have one that's just a Boolean calc saying that metric select equals profit. And we'll drag that to color. Then you can set those color values again for the true and false. In my dashboard, when it's true, I have it set to blue. When it's false, I have it set to gray. So now if I click on sales, you see this one turns blue. If I click on profit, you see profit turns blue and sales turns gray. And we can take this a step further. Something I like to do on the bands is I'm going to take that same KPI selected sales calc that we just put on color, and I'm going to drag that up to text as well. I'll just do a little formatting. With on my profit worksheet as well. So now when sales is selected, you'll see down here at the bottom, this says viewing sales. All of the other ones will say click to view, whatever that measure is. And then when you click on those other measures, that one will say viewing that measure, and the others will say click to sales. And I'll show you real quick how I did that. So the field that we added to text there is just that KPI selected metric, which if you'll remember is just a Boolean calc. So this should return a true false value. But if you right click and go to aliases, you can alias the results. So when this is true, I have it aliased. So it'll display viewing sales. When it's false, it'll display click to view sales. And I did that for each of these calculations. So we can just drag those onto text. When that metric is selected, it'll say, instead of saying true, it'll say viewing, whatever you had put in the alias. And then finally, one last thing I like to do with these kind of flexible dashboards is in each one of my headers, I'm just going to insert the value from that metric select parameter. So now this will say sales by region when sales is selected, or profit by region when profit is selected. And you can do that for each of your sheets. You can also do that in the tooltips as well. So if I go to this worksheet, just on my tooltip, here I have the values, and then I just insert the parameter value there. So it'll say sales if sales is selected, or profit if profit is selected. All right, and then let's see. So now we have our KPI selectors in place, but one limitation here is, so we have 4 different metrics that you can select on the dashboard, but they should all have different number formats. So sales and profit should be formatted as currency, units sold should be formatted as a whole number, and this on-time shipment rate should be formatted as a percentage. But if we just drag our metric calc field to the label, we can only set one number format for that, but we really want to have separate ones. So give me 1 second. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go to my first worksheet. And I'm going to create 4 calculated fields, one for each of our bands. So starting with sales, this is just going to say if our metric select equals sales, then return the metric calc value. Otherwise, it's going to be null. Same for profit. And we'll just repeat that for all 4 of the bands. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is on each of these calculated fields, we're going to right click. We're going to go to default properties, and we're going to set a default number format. So for sales, I want this set to currency. I'm going to do it to 1 decimal place and display in thousands. For profit, I'm going to do the same thing, currency, 1 decimal place, display in thousands. For quantity, I'm going to set this to a whole number with 0 decimal places. And with shipping, I'm going to set this to a percentage to 1 decimal place. Now, first, I'm going to remove this metric calc from our label. Then I'm going to take all 4 of our label calculations and drag those to label. Then I'll click on label, and I'm just going to bring these all onto the same row. So I'm just going to change this to black so you can see them. And I'll just bring these all to the top right next to each other. Now, if I go back to my dashboard, you see when sales is selected, it's formatted as currency. When profit is selected, it's formatted as currency. When units sold is selected, it's formatted as a whole number. And when on-time shipment is selected, it's formatted as a percentage. And basically the way that works is that 3 of the 4 values will always be null, and the null values don't take up any space on the label. So if you have all 4 of them next to each other, the 3 that are null will just kind of collapse, and the one that is populated will just move to the front of the line. All right. So one more thing to consider is whether or not the same chart types would be applicable for all your different metrics. So in this case, an area chart is, probably a good choice for sales, profit, and units sold, but maybe not the best choice for this on-time shipment metric. So what you can do is use some of the work that we've already done to do some sheet swapping. So I've created a separate worksheet here. So I have my kind of area chart, but I also have this kind of alternate chart, which is just like a little sparkline chart that I want to use to show the on-time shipment percentages. So I'm going to go back to my dashboard. I'm going to drag out a floating horizontal container. I'm going to do a little bit of formatting on this. So right now in all of my worksheets, you can see I have a white border and a white background set to 30%. That's what gives it this kind of light blue background. So I'm going to do the same thing on my container here. I'm going to take my area chart sheet and drag that into my container. Ooh. Move this container up, resize it so it fits in that same space. I also want to remove the formatting from this worksheet. So let's set both of these to none. All right, now I want to take my alternate sheet, which is going to be this overtime sheet, and drag that into the container. Get rid of this. Gonna hide the title here. All right, so now we have them both in the view. Now we just need to add a filter to only view one at a time. So I have a calculated field here called sheet swap filter. And again, it's just a simple Boolean calc. It says the metric select parameter equals shipping. So on my shipping worksheet, I want to drag that to filter and filter on true. On my other worksheet, I want to drag that to filter and I want to filter on false. So now if I click on the on-time shipments, we'll get this sparkline chart. And if I filter on or click on any of the other bands, we'll get the area chart. And the way that works is basically having the opposite values in the sheet swap filter is only one of them will be true at a time. And since they're both in a container, if one of them doesn't have any data to display, it'll just automatically collapse and the other view will expand to fill that space. All right, and now on to our last tip, which is the instructions overlay here. So I like to use PowerPoint to build these overlays, but really you can use any design tool that you prefer. Just PowerPoint is really easy. So I'm going to show you how to do it in there. So first thing you're going to do is go to dashboard. We're going to copy the image of our dashboard, bring it over to PowerPoint. First, we want to set the size of our slides. The size of our slide. What's really nice about PowerPoint and Tableau is 1 inch in PowerPoint is exactly equal to 100 pixels in Tableau. So if I go to my dashboard, I see my dashboard is 1400 pixels by 900. So here I can go to design, slide size, go to custom, and I'll set this to 14 by 9. So it'll be the same size as my dashboard. And then I can just paste in my dashboard. It should fit the size of the slide perfectly. Next, I'm going to bring in a square and just set this to the size of the whole dashboard. I'll right click and go to format shape. I'm going to set this to black and then set it to about 20% transparency. Again, you can set it to whatever you like. I usually go somewhere between 20 and 30, just so you can still see the dashboard behind it. Then you can start adding notes. So the way I usually like to do it is I will put a box around the section that is interactive. So we'll put that here. We'll put a white outline and no fill. And make that outline a little bit thicker. Edit text, and here you can just say, click to filter dashboard by region. And you can copy that and move it to your other sections. So I'm not gonna spend time building this whole thing out, but I have one here that is, pretty complete. So once you have all your notes in place, there's a couple different ways you can do this. The way I like to do it is just highlight everything, right click and group them. Oh, actually, sorry, I'm going to undo that. First, what you want to do is click on the black box, send that to the back, and then delete your dashboard. So you have just the black box and all of the notes. Highlight all of them, right click and group. Right click again, save as picture. I'm going to save this as overlay. And I'm going to go back to my dashboard. I'm going to drag out a floating container. I'm going to set the X and Y coordinates for the container to start at 0, 0, so the top left corner. And then I'm going to set the width and height equal to the entire dashboard, so it covers the whole thing. Then I'm going to drag an image into that container. I'll fit and center it, and I'm going to choose my overlay. I'll go to layout and just get rid of that padding so it fills the entire screen. Okay, then click anywhere on your image, click on the drop-down to select the container. Now we're going to add a show hide button. Move this into here. Let's edit our button. So now we can choose an image for when the item is shown or when the item is hidden. So when the item is shown, meaning that the instructions are on the screen, I'm going to keep that default X, but I'm going to just add kind of a gray background to it to make it a little bit more visible. And when the item is hidden, I have just this white information icon that I'm going to use. So now you can click on the X to close the instructions, or you have this little info button that you can use to display the instructions. And then typically I'll just add a little text box next to it that says the instructions. I'm just going to go to the layout and move those underneath that container. All right, so that's all I have for you. This dashboard that I covered today is available on my Tableau public page. So just search for my name, Brian Moore, and you'll see a dashboard that looks like this. And then the blog post that walks through all of these tips and a few more is available on Sons of Hierarchies, and I'll drop that in the chat right after.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian. That was incredible. Really useful tips and tricks for the business dashboards. So really, really, really useful. So
Right.
we
Thank
have
you
a
for
couple
having
of
me.
questions.
Sure.
So one of the questions goes as asking as a standard business practice, how many maximum numbers of bands can we use in a business dashboard?
So I mean, there's no set rule. I'll typically use somewhere between 4 and 6, but there's nothing saying that you can't use more than that. Yeah, I don't know if there's a best practice specific to the number of bands. It really depends on how many metrics that you're including in your dashboard. If you have too many metrics, you may want to rethink the dashboard. Maybe it doesn't make sense to include everything if you're trying to shove 20 bands into a dashboard. Maybe those should be separate. But yeah, I mean, it really depends on what you're trying to give to your users.
Okay. So we have one other question. I could see that few of the views are in floating mode. Since it is a fixed size dashboard, the items would not change position. Any best practices we need to follow while using the floating containers in business dashboards?
Yeah, so I mean, I typically only use floating if I'm using a background image. So in this dashboard, I have I have just kind of a background image for this. If I'm not using a background image, I'll typically use tiled containers. But if I am going to use floating, I put everything in containers just so it's easier to move around. So I'll kind of reproduce the tiled using kind of a system of containers, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So, we have few other questions. The other questions will be answered at the end. We'll send out the answers to you. We'll mail you the answer. Yeah.
Okay. And again, I'll put my contact information up here. Feel free to reach out to me on Twitter or LinkedIn too, and I'm happy to answer any questions or just talk generally about Tableau. So, all right. Well, thank you very much for having me. This was great. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks a lot for sharing. So let me let's move on to the next session. So our next speaker is Sarah Bartlett. She works as a BI and analytics consultant at Slalom, UK. Sarah Bartlett is a two-time Zen master, and she works for clients to across the data and visualize their data more effectively in Tableau. In 2018, she competed in the Analyst competition, and she runs the project IronQuest, and she all the community. It's a data visualization initiative designed to prepare individuals for the Analyst competitions. Sarah is one of the people who is responsible for building the community over the years. So through her initiative, guidance, support, a lot of people have found their way in the community. And her contributions to the community is only increases exponentially day by day. She's very helpful, and she welcomes every new phase and guides them in the community. So over to you, Sarah.
Thank you, Vinodh, for the introduction, and thank you for inviting me to speak here today. I'm just going to take over the screen from yourself. And let me know if you can see my slides okay.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Okay, brilliant. All right, so today I'm going to talk to you about skills for success and tips, share lots of tips to help you become a better analyst with Tableau. I'm conscious I'm going to share a lot of links today, so I'll share my slides with Vinodh after this and he can send them out to you so you've got access to everything. So just, Vinodh's introduced me already, but so I'll just skip over this slide. If you want to reach out to me, you can reach out to me on Twitter, so Sarah Loves Data, or on my blog, sarahlovesdata.co.uk. So in terms of my professional background, I've been working in analytics for over 12 years. I've been a Tableau user for 7 years now, which is just crazy. And I've been in consulting for 4 years. I'm also Tableau desktop certified. So I've got all the certifications plus the more recent partner certification, which I got recently. And also I founded IronQuest in 2019, as Vinodh mentioned. Here are a few of my Tableau Public visualizations. I haven't done a lot on Tableau Public recently, but I hope to do more soon. But Tableau Public has been kind of like where I've shared my work for most of my journey. I've got over 150 visualizations on there. But if we take a step back and I'll just tell you where I came from, and hopefully this will help describe some of the skills that I've picked up on the way and how you can do the same thing. So in terms of my journey, before I used Tableau, I was using Excel, and Excel was my go-to BI tool. I had dashboards that looked something like this. This isn't actually one of mine, but a lot of my work was around like these guidelines. And I was working for a company where I was an analyst and producing lots of dashboards in Excel, and it was far from efficient. But that was kind of like all I knew. And then we had a new head of BI join my company, and he offered to send everybody on a training course for Tableau. And I never heard of Tableau before, but I was like, okay, it's training. I'm not going to say no. So I went on the training course for Tableau and immediately fell in love with it. I thought Tableau was amazing. I was really like blown away by things like the mapping capabilities. At the time, I was working for a company where we had multiple different sites, and we looked at performance across sites. So the ability to be able to map that easily in Tableau and show that which sites were under or overperforming was really powerful. So loved the training, but then when I came back to my work and actually tried to apply some of these techniques, I really struggled, and I just couldn't get Tableau to do what I wanted it to do. The data that I was working with wasn't like the Superstore data that I'd been trained on, so I didn't use Tableau for a while. I decided to go back to Excel and not pursue Tableau for as long as I could. And then I started following the community. And that was the big kind of change point for me. Following the community really inspired me to get involved. I saw things that other people were doing, and I thought, if other people can do it, it can't be that difficult. And I really like the look of some of this stuff, so I want to get involved more. And that was around the same time as Andy Kriebel and Andy Cockgreave launched Makeover Monday. So I think that was about 5 years ago. So I got involved in Makeover Monday at the very, very beginning. And I also started following Andy Kriebel's blog. And then from there, I started getting involved in more things, watching lots of videos on YouTube from Andy Kriebel and other people, and also getting involved in a project called Viz for Social Good. So this is some of my early work here. Makeover Monday is a project you've probably heard about before, but if you're not familiar with it, it's still running today. And the way that it works is the leaders, so it's currently Eva Murray and Andy Kriebel, they will publish a visualization that perhaps isn't the best. Sometimes they're good, but other times they may be presented quite poorly. And the idea is you take the data from that chart, which they provide, and you produce something better. So here's an example from a few years ago where this was the starting visualization, and these are the visualizations that some of the community came up with. And the great thing about Makeover Monday is that you can see what other people do, so you can get inspiration from other people's work, and it also gives you a great opportunity to practice. So when I first started getting involved, this was the first viz that I actually published to Tableau Public. I was really scared to publish this actually. I thought that people would say I'd done it wrong or something, but I really regret not getting involved sooner. So this was like again, this is a very prominent point in my journey. Posted my first Tableau Public viz. Nothing went wrong. Nobody said it was bad. I admit that it's not the best visualization, but it's still on my Tableau Public portfolio. Now, the second viz that I did, which was the following week, I think is even worse, is this one, where I really went to town, tried lots of different techniques, used the bubble charts, which you find a lot of beginners use. And yeah, I just did this, and I was really proud of this at the time, but looking back, I can see there's lots of room for improvement. And what's funny is this viz is actually in the Makeover Monday book. So if you have a copy of that book and turn to page 17, I think this is the first viz that you actually see in that book. So I never thought when I was starting out that this viz would be put into print, but there you go. But thankfully, I've improved a lot since then, I think. And this is one of my more recent vizzes that I did last year. And this was for another Makeover Monday, where I tried out some different design techniques. And over the years since I've been involved in the Tableau community, I think I've achieved quite a lot. These are some of my key achievements over the years. Just summarize, because I kind of forget all the things that I've done, and it's been such an amazing journey, and I've had so much fun along the way. Got to meet lots of great people as well, and the community is really like the differentiator for me. If you look at other tools, I just don't believe they have the same type of community as Tableau do. So if this wasn't a reason enough to get involved, why else should you learn Tableau? So I would say data skills are in demand. And that's not just Tableau, there's demand for other BI tools and other data skills as well. But if you have a look around at job profiles on places like LinkedIn, you'll see that Tableau rates quite highly in terms of what people are looking for. It's still a market-leading visualization software, so you'll see it mentioned quite frequently in jobs that are looking for somebody to be a data analyst or something similar to that. It's industry agnostic, so any industry could use Tableau. So you're not limiting yourself in that sense. It's easy to learn. You just have to give it some time, but it is particularly it's intuitive. It's with the drag and drop kind of design. There's obviously a free open source version on Tableau Public, so that shouldn't be a blocker for you to get involved. And also you have the Tableau community, which is second to none. There's always people out there posting blog posts and sharing tips and tricks and just how to use the tool more effectively. So if you want to get involved, what other skills might you need to help you on your journey as a data analyst? So I actually saw this triangle published by a guy called Will Chase. He's quite popular in the R community, but he suggested that there's a kind of a data visualization skills triangle, and that triangle was made up of 3 points: data, tools, and design. So if we go through each of these individually, you'll get a sense of kind of the things that you might need to focus on if you want to pursue a career in this field. And it's worth saying as well, you don't need to be an expert in all of these, but you do need to have an understanding and appreciation of at least 2 of the 3, and be able to you might be able to get through missing one of them, but you do need some basic skills in each. So the first one is data. So when I talk about data here, I'm talking about connecting to, preparing, understanding, and analyzing data. So if you want to visualize data, you need to have the skills to actually get the data in the first place, to connect to the data and actually get your data in the right shape for visualization. So this kind of data point would cover things like data collection methods, data wrangling, and knowledge of data structures. Basic statistics could also be useful because that could help bring kind of a deeper level of analysis into your work. And ultimately the ability to evaluate hypothesis and tell a story, because that's what we do with data visualization. So the stronger you can be in those areas, the better. The next area is design. So this is talking about how to present your data effectively and apply design attributes to aid understanding. So nobody likes to look at any visualizations that aren't laid out particularly well, or if they're not intuitive to use. if you just take the example of a website, if it's not designed very well, or it's not intuitive, or it's slow, chances are that people won't use that website again. So it's the same rules apply to data visualization. So it's really important that you actually understand how we can apply these design principles to data visualization. So that will be things like how to use pre-attentive attributes to help tell your story. So that could be sizing your marks differently to help bring them to the reader's attention, or coloring things differently. Then a knowledge of layouts is beneficial for when we're building things like dashboards. A knowledge of how to apply fonts, how to apply colors and make sure that people can actually see our visualizations, and just basic understanding of UI and UX is quite beneficial. And finally, the last point is tools. So these are the solutions that actually help us to achieve these things. So there's BI tools like Tableau, Power BI, or Excel. There's design tools that you can help supplement your work in Tableau. So things like Figma, Adobe Illustrator, or PowerPoint. There's code that can help us get to our data and prepare our data. So things like SQL, Python, or R. And then obviously pen and paper, because that's a really great tool in itself. It costs nothing really. It's a good way to kind of prep out your work, or maybe draw out your designs before you use them. There is one additional area that I would like to bring to your attention, and that's the community. So I think the community kind of underpins all of this, and the community can help you in each of these areas, whether that's the Tableau community or other communities related to Tableau in the data space. So maybe it's communities around Python or R, or communities around design. So let's go through some things that will help you on your journey. So first thing when we talk about Tableau is around mastering the basics. So there's a lot of free training resources out there that I highly suggest you take a look at. Throughout this presentation, I'm going to focus on free resources because I think majority of what you need is free. So Tableau provides some great training resources on their website. They also have the e-learning. That's not free, but it's minimal cost, and sometimes they do special offers that can help you actually get access to those courses. Then there's the resources that can help you improve your skills in things like Python, R, or SQL. So websites like DataCamp or FreeCodeCamp offer free courses in those tools. If you can or have the ability, it would be good to attend a training class or course. Throughout my Tableau journey, I've attended a 2-day training course, and that's been everything that I've done in terms of the way of classroom training. But if those things are offered to you, then obviously take up that opportunity. There's also some great courses on websites like Udemy or LinkedIn Learning, which you can follow at your own pace, or just by attending user groups like this one, or looking at some of the recordings of user groups on YouTube, on the Tableau YouTube channel, can be really beneficial. Like the talk we've just seen from Brian, it's really helpful in understanding some of those techniques better. And if you want to get better at just general data visualization best practices and principles, then I'd highly encourage you to check out Cole Nussbaum-Knaflich's site, which is storytellingwithdata.com, and she has a whole community on there. It's free to join, and they do monthly challenges that help you improve your data visualization skills. In terms of Tableau specifically, there's some great guides that have been written by members of the community. So there's the Tableau Survival Guide, which is written by Autumn, which has some links to help you navigate the Tableau community and essentially improve your skills in Tableau. Another similar site is the Tableau Student Guide, which was written by Maria Brock, which is aimed at people just starting out with Tableau, and it gives you some pointers on how to learn the principles and also how to kind of maximize your community participation. And then there's a Tableau Learning Path by Sagar and Adam, who's speaking after me, which is essentially a Tableau workbook full of links that will help you on your Tableau learning journey. Okay, so now imagine you're mastering the basics. The best way of doing that, in addition to these trainings, is by practicing. I think that was where I went wrong at the beginning, because I didn't like to use Tableau. I dismissed it straight away. But if I'd practiced a little bit more, then I think I would have stuck with it for those initial few weeks. The good thing is there's plenty of opportunities to practice your skills in the community. There's a whole host of community projects out there, so I guarantee there's something for you in something focusing on something that you enjoy. I've mentioned Makeover Monday already, which is a weekly project. There's also Workout Wednesday, which is a weekly project as well, but it's almost the opposite of Makeover Monday in the sense that they publish a finished visualization, and the idea is you try and recreate it yourself without looking at how it was built. And the great thing about Workout Wednesday is it teaches you a lot of skills, like you can master your Tableau calculations, or just learn some tips and tricks along the way you wouldn't know otherwise. And then there's some monthly projects as well. So there's Iron Quest, which I lead myself. So every month we visualize a different project, a different topic, sorry. There's Project Health Viz, which is a monthly project which focuses on health topics. So every month they'll share a health topic or data set for you to visualize. Viz for Social Good focuses on creating visualizations for non-profits or charitable organizations. And then Sports Viz Sunday is a monthly project focused on sports. So there's, as I said, there's plenty of projects out there for you to get involved in. I think ultimately it's important to combine your learning. So by taking on some small scale projects, so like Makeover Mondays, maybe challenge yourself to compete every week, but also try and dig into larger projects as well. Maybe try and challenge yourself when you participate in these projects. I know when I was first starting out, I tried to challenge myself to build a different chart type every week. And that really helped me then learn Tableau to a deeper degree and apply my learning actually in my job as well. Okay, so the next thing that will help you become a better analyst is knowing how to ask the right questions of your data. So data can be very confusing, and if you don't, I mean, if your data's not accurate and then you try and visualize it, then you're going to lead into lead down a difficult path. So you really need to understand the limits of your data. You need to ask yourself when you're using data, perhaps if particularly if it's something for a personal project, I mean, is your data trustworthy? If your data is not trustworthy, then obviously any visualization you produce isn't going to be trustworthy. Is your data complete? The last thing you want to do is try and visualize incomplete data, because again, you're going to get the end result will be inaccurate. And really ask yourself when you're visualizing your data, is this the right data that I need, or do I need some additional data, or is there any additional data that could help me kind of answer the questions that I need to answer for my audience? Quite often it's the case is you might need multiple data sources. I know in a lot of my visualizations on Tableau Public, I've used 5 or more data sources, which I've combined together to help tell a more compelling story. There's 2 books I'd recommend that will really help you with those kind of overcoming those kind of like questions around data and help you avoid making mistakes. So that's How Charts Lie by Alberto Cairo and Avoiding Data Pitfalls by Ben Jones. And those are really great books. I encourage you to check them out. Sorry? Okay. Okay, the next one is, the next tip I have for you is to study design fundamentals. So when you search on Google for like design or like design fundamentals, quite often you end up looking at websites focused on web design or graphic design. Well, these design principles are great. They don't always apply to data viz quite in the same way. The good thing is that there's some books out there that will help you to just learn the principles of design a little bit better. And some of them have been written specifically for people in the data visualization space. So there's a list here of books and online resources which could help you become a better designer in Tableau. I'd say really try and seek inspiration from other fields. And you see there's people doing this more and more in the Tableau community now, but there's websites like Dribbble and Behance which show like very well designed dashboards with modern styling, which aren't built in Tableau. Quite often they're built in design tools like Figma or Illustrator, but that doesn't mean to say you can't challenge yourself to try and build something similar in Tableau yourself. And I'd say just try and still like an artist. So find something you like and try and replicate it. It's a great learning exercise and you will learn a lot. The same applies for Tableau Public. So you can have a look on Tableau Public and find visualizations that you like. If you download them, you may be able to reverse engineer and try and figure out how they were built. But I'll caveat that with never publish other people's work as your own and always give credit where credit is due. So if you are taking someone else's work and trying to recreate it, I would suggest not publishing it or certainly not passing it off as your own work. But it's a good learning exercise that you can actually learn techniques which you can apply in your own work, which is perfectly okay. And that comes onto my next point around publishing your work. So it's all well and good you learning all these skills, but the most important thing is you actually share what you're doing and allow other people to see all the great work you're doing. So Tableau Public is the perfect place to do that. It's free to use, and I'd highly encourage you to set up a profile on there and start uploading your work to Tableau Public so you can share it with a wider audience. When you're doing that, it's great to share it on social media as well. So whatever your preferred social media platform is, go ahead and share your work on there. That people love to see it, and you'll be surprised at the number of people that will comment on your work or connect with you on the basis of something they've seen that you've produced. It's really important when you're on your journey to seek feedback and iterate. So that was a key point for me when I got started, was that feedback was just so useful. So thankfully, there's a lot of feedback initiatives out there now that can help you with this. If you want feedback just informally, then there's no harm in asking when you post something, let's say to Twitter, that feedback's welcome, or just to see what people would say. But there's also feedback initiatives built into some of the projects. So like Make of a Monday Viz Review, the IronQuest project that I run has a feedback option as well. If you use the hashtag #DataFamFeedback, that's designed for people to search and provide feedback to visualizations that have that tag. Or again, the Storytelling with Data community has a feedback option, and it doesn't need to be a visualization that's produced for any of their projects. When you're building out your Tableau Public profile, it's really important to show progression. So don't be afraid to show those initial visualizations that might not be the best. Like I've still got my first on my profile, but what I love to see on people's profiles is how they've developed their skills over time. So you can show yourself getting a little bit better with every visualization that you produce. And if you're looking for a job, or if you just want to use this as a learning exercise, a great thing to produce is a visual CV. So that's where you build out your resume in Tableau and show your career journey, include any links to anything important that you've done. This is a visualization by Alex Jones, where he did that in quite a creative way. And we have another one here by Maria Brock, which again, it's completely different in style, but it contains the same type of information. Recently, Ken Flerledge, who is another Zen master, he actually launched this Tableau Public stats service. So if you've been using Tableau Public for a little while, I'd highly recommend checking this out. And what this does is it actually gives you a download of your Tableau Public data. So the number of visits you've got, the number of views, the favorites, that kind of thing. And he's actually got a template which allows you to build a visualization just like the one you see on the screen. And that can be a nice thing to add to your Tableau Public profile as well, and share with people, just to show all the work you've done. I've mentioned it a couple of times, but it's really important to engage with the community. So you could do all of this stuff like kind of on your own behind the scenes, but I think the benefits really come when you start engaging with the community. Now, if you're at this event today, you're already doing that, which is great to see. And my first point on here is to join a user group. So the fact you're here, fantastic. The good thing about the virtual world at the moment, it means you can attend user groups around the world from the comfort of your home. So definitely use that opportunity to check out what other user groups are doing. Follow other users on Tableau Public and favorite work that you like, so then you can come back to it and use that as a source of inspiration later. Try and join Twitter or LinkedIn and follow other data people. If you don't know who to follow, just look for the hashtag #DataFam, and I guarantee you'll be able to find people that way. You can get involved with the Data Visualization Society, which is run on Slack. That's free to join, and that contains members from the data visualization field from across the world who all use different tools. There's a lot of stuff that goes on there that I recommend checking out. Another thing I'd recommend doing is finding a mentor. So I actually co-lead Mentoring Meetup with Vinodh and Adam and Brian, who are all on this event today. And we're always looking for new mentors and new mentees. So definitely consider signing up to that site, and we can help match you with a mentor. And the Storytelling Data community I've mentioned a couple of times. Next point is to get certified. So you might be thinking, why do I need a Tableau certification? But the great thing about getting certified is it's something you can put on your CV to say, yes, I actually do know what I'm talking about. I do know Tableau. And it really could help set you out, help you to stand out from the crowd. If you want to get certified, I'd suggest checking out learningtableau.com, where they have a number of practice exam papers that you can try. Even if you don't want to actually take the certification, you can go there and take an exam for free, and just to see how you get on, and it could help identify gaps in your understanding of Tableau. There's 3 main certification paths for the desktop certifications. So the first entry level one is the specialist exam, which it's the cheapest of the 3. And the great thing about the specialist exam is it actually lasts forever, whereas the other 2 expire. But perhaps if you're further along your journey, consider having a look at the associate and professional exams as well. They cost a bit more, but they definitely go into a deeper level of knowledge. And then one last thing I want to cover is the community resources. So I've mentioned it again and again, but there's so much out there in terms of the community and things you can utilize to help with your own learning. I've listed a couple of websites here, which you could have a look at, but this is by no means an extensive list. Like, there's so much, it would be impossible for me to cover it in a talk. If you want to kind of like a one-stop shop of where to go and where to look for things, the Tableau Community Hub, which the link is at the bottom, is a great place to start, and it will give you some kind of links to other places to look for community resources. And I have one final thing, so I forgot, when that is around teaching others. So it's all well and good that you go and practice and learn Tableau, but I think the only thing that really kind of certifies your understanding is actually when you try and teach others what you know. And I think by teaching others, you realize if you know something well enough or not, or maybe you need to recap it. And there's plenty of opportunities for you to go and teach via the community. So the most basic thing to do would be to start a blog or a video channel on YouTube. Both of those things they could be free to set up, and it's a great way of actually sharing your understanding and knowledge with others. You could consider mentoring someone through the Mentoring Meetup program. You could consider presenting at a TUG or a meetup just like this one. I'm sure Vinodh would love more speakers, so if you've got something to share, then please do. And if not this TUG, there's any TUGs around the world, I guarantee, would be looking for speakers. So just get your name out there. It's a great way of showing what you know and meeting new people. You could challenge yourself to answer questions in the community forums. So you've probably come across the community forums, and that's where people go to actually ask questions when they get stuck in Tableau. There's thousands of questions on there that are waiting for an answer on. So if you want a challenge, definitely go and check that out. And perhaps in your workplace, you could consider running a Tableau doctor clinic or a lunch and learn session. So maybe you've just taught yourself how to use something in Tableau, like maybe parameters or calculations, and you want to share it with your colleagues, then perhaps consider setting up a session with your colleagues to just go through that. It's rare that anyone would say no to like free learning. So hopefully those points have been helpful. Just to recap, we spoke about mastering the basics, studying design fundamentals, practicing regularly, publishing your work, asking the right questions, engaging with the community, getting certified, and teaching others. But if you want to reach out to me, I've got all my links on this slide here. And as I said, I will share my slides with Vinodh and the other leaders so they can be emailed out to you after this event. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Sarah. That was a great session. I mean, it's like a perfect roadmap for a data analyst to improve their skills. I wish I had this when I started my journey. So thanks a lot.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Do you have any questions?
Yeah. So there is one question. So could you please share some details about the learning path for UI UX, how to develop your skills?
Yeah, sure. So I'd say definitely check out those sites that I share, so Dribble and Behance, and have a look at what other people are doing. They actually share some links to learning on those sites. So there's some courses you can take. Have a look at sites like Udemy that do a lot of courses on UI and UX. But again, they often focus very much on like web design and not necessarily data visualization, but I think the principles are very similar. So it's like the placement of items, the way things look and feel. There's definitely a lot of learning and transferable skills that you can apply to your own work. So yeah. Any other questions?
No, Sarah.
Okay. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. Bye.
Next speaker is Adam. Okay. So, yeah. So Adam is the binding force of the community. He's one of the reasons our community has started feeling like a family. So, he welcomes new people, guides them, encourages them, and like he's everywhere. So he makes sure no one feels left out, and he works on inclusion, and he works on a lot of initiatives. So yeah. So I'm also excited to hear from Adam on what he has for us today. Adam, over to you.
Very good. Thank you so much for the introduction, Vinodh. It's great to be able to speak and present at the Chennai TUG. The thing is that there's some overlap between, there's plenty of overlap between Sarah and my presentation. What I want you to take away from the beginning, though, is that this is more focused on free items that will help up-level your skills in the Tableau community and how to be connected with the Tableau community as well. And there's a bunch of resources, and if time is available, I'll share some of those websites as well, so you could see those websites on my computer too. So this is more or less there's plenty of overlap, just so you're aware up front, but there's so many great things to share, and it's good to have a little bit more information, background, and maybe hearing it from two different voices. So a little bit about me. I'm a Tableau Ambassador. I was elected to most recent cohort in 2020. I blog each week. I help lead mentoring meetup. I also am a co-host on BizConnect. And I'm the DataFam Remo Hangout organizer. So next Saturday, we're having a great event. And if you want to be part of that and hang out with the DataFam, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll send you a link where you could be part of that. So on the left is a huge blog that I compiled last year with 129 people in our DataFam. This is a little badge of me when I was elected as a social ambassador. And here's a bit of my portfolio as well. So I've worked in Tableau since 2014 at work, but didn't really do much with it community-wise until I learned about the community back in 2019. I wasn't interested in being part of any sort of community before. Tuan Wang from Tableau Magic basically told me that there was this Twitter community. I didn't really care, but I figured I'd give it a shot. And from like its first couple moments, it really wrapped me in. Gave me not only a place where I could help give back to, it also gave me a place where I was very excited to be part of so many great things going on. And even more so is that in recent year and a half, it's been even more, the growth has been tremendous. It can be overwhelming because there's so many initiatives and stuff out there, but it's just a great place for pretty much anybody, for those that want to learn Tableau and bring it back to work with them, and have a place where you could share your work in Tableau, because you have this great resource on Tableau Public where you could share that information. So here's what I'll cover in this session. How-to resources. So the various resources that are free in our community that you could use to up-level your skills. I'm of the mindset that you could pretty much do anything you need to do and learn what you need to do in Tableau for free based on our great community resources. There are blogs, there's videos, there's pretty much everything. Finding data for personal visits. People get stuck all the time, like what data can I get and grab for my visits? I have no idea where to find it, what to do, and what to look for. So this will share a couple bits about that. Using and publishing on Tableau Public. I'll talk a little bit about that. Tableau Public is a free resource, and it's great to use in a place where you could just showcase your what you're doing and what you're working on and your advancement. And then finally, connecting on social media platforms. So on social media platforms, we have, there's many blogs, video tutorials, Tableau public authors, and community forums. So I'm going to show a couple bits of what we have here as far as the blogs are concerned. So there's a couple resource lists, and this is Michael Sandberg's. He updated this last in 2019, but it has about 150 different blog sites that feature Tableau blogs or Tableau related blogs. And then there's been an update. So that's titled Tableau Viz blog. And there's just all these links to these great sites that are all free to access and give you an opportunity to advance your skill set. A more recent one is by Hipster Viz Ninja, or Sean. Sean, he basically is also an ambassador as well. So he's updated this list and has many different blogs that you could access. So there's links, there's a feed if you want to access feeds, and pretty much everything else. And last but not least are the Flurledge twins. They do, I wouldn't say this is last, I have one more after this, but the Flurledge twins, they create content on a weekly basis. They have guest blogs sometimes, but the most relevant blog post for this would be their how to connect with the Tableau community. So I strongly advise you to search for that after this session and read and review that if it's still very much a mystery to you. This was published a few months ago, and it's a great read, and it's something I would share to anybody that that feels that the community is confusing to them and so forth, and you'll really want to be part of that. And I have to point out Tableau Magic. Because Tableau Magic is just an amazing site with different resources, very well organized, and it covers everything from basic Tableau to advanced custom visualization, so using a lot of trig and vizzes and so forth. In addition to that, there's other items, including SQL for Tableau and so forth, that would really help extend your Tableau base. Next up, we have some video tutorials. The first one I've ever really gone to, even before I was part of the community, is Andy Kriebel's. So you definitely want to check out his video site, because it just has such great content besides just tutorials. It covers Viz reviews, so you could see feedback shared from various Vizes on Makeover Monday. There's a bunch of other items there too that's very good and very helpful as far as helping you create a specific chart or determining how to emphasize certain things on your data visualizations to make the experience better. And again, this is all free. I have to plug BizConnect. And I was excited right during this session, the beginning of the session, I was recording the new Tableau Public Features cohort, which was covering the community of new featured authors on Tableau Public. So there's about 10 of them that we talked about their journey and so forth. And besides that, you have webinars from everybody from community stars to Zen masters and everyone in between. So I definitely advise you to check that out. It gives you not only tips, but a lot of different insights as far as how to create great data visualizations. And finally is Tableau Tim. He creates just amazing content and factors in what people are looking for. He created a great behind the scenes video maybe a couple weeks ago showing where he gets his ideas from. And ideas are basically from people looking up and wanting to find how to do something in Tableau. So pretty much anything that you need is covered here. So I can't say this enough. So subscribe to him and subscribe to all those channels, because they're all great in their own way, and they'll really help you pick up your game. And a lot of times when you're learning Tableau, at least for me, I don't like to just go on a blog. Sometimes I just need to see and watch people do things. And video content is just amazing stuff to help you really emphasize your game and pick up your game there. Next up, as I mentioned before, many of these people that you see on the Tableau featured authors are now part of this. So one second is here's the Tableau featured authors. And I apologize, I didn't bring the sites over to that screen, so I apologize in advance. But here's the Tableau public featured authors, and they're just great people on Tableau Public, which you should follow. And definitely, I follow all these people. I just haven't signed into Tableau Public because they give you such great sources of inspiration. So it's really great to see what they have to share. And finally, there's community forums. So Sarah pointed this out a little bit before. You want to explore the forums because there's a lot of questions and answers in the forums, and you could pretty much find what you ever needed to look up as far as having a question or having an idea for Tableau Public to see if it's already based there. They have it really nicely itemized now. So if you're looking for answers on Tableau Desktop, Tableau Server, or Tableau Prep, those are places you really want to explore to get your answers and maybe share knowledge that you have if other people have questions. So next up, what about data for your data visualization sets? So one of the big problems with a lot of people is that they're looking at data visualization stuff and they have no idea where to get the information from. So where do I find the information I need? A lot of it is based on community data initiatives. So there's a lot of data visualization challenges. The main one would be Makeover Monday, which is this site. And I can't encourage you to access this right away, especially if you're just learning Tableau. You jump into the data sets and they're very well organized here. So let me just click here. So you have the link, you have Viz reviews here, and this is part of the Andy Kriebel's YouTube channel. So you can click that and see what the feedback was from the session from people that recorded those sessions, and you could access the data links. And as you could see here, this project just didn't start. It goes way back to 2016. So anybody just starting out and not familiar with using different data sets, these are relatively clean and many of them are very small. So it gives you a great chance to start working with stuff. In addition to that, you could find what people did before that and kind of compare what you're doing. So maybe you don't want to publish things right away. You're working on old data sets, but you could create something and just compare your work to what they're doing when they're sharing their feedback for data visualizations shared during that week. So I would advise you to do that, especially if you're starting out, because it's in a safe space because nobody will know you're doing that if you don't share it, but you're also enhancing your skill set. So if you're not ready to go public yet with your data visualizations, you can get a nice head start by doing this type of stuff, working with the data, reviewing the Viz review, and also looking at what Andy Kriebel does when he creates his data visualization for that data set that week. And in addition to that, we want to develop your own data. So oftentimes for passion projects, one of the things, I'll cover other data sets first. I apologize real quick. So there's other, data.world is a site where you can go and people publish a bunch of data sets. It's a little bit of a struggle to find what you need, but I highly advise if you want to find something easy, as far as knowing what you're getting into, you go to kaggle.com. They have a very well indexed data. In addition to that, they cover a bunch of different stuff too. So you could determine how easy it is to use the data because they have it graded. So for example, if you want to go and access a specific data set, let's say Starbucks data, and you could look up Starbucks and then you could find the data set and it tells you right away whether it's something that you could use and show on a scale of 1 to 10, the higher the score, the easier it is to use and how clean it is. So I would highly advise you to go out there. There's many other public data sets based on the many different data visualization projects. Vinodh and Brian's project is one of them. Is you can grab the data to create data visualizations for more detailed data visualizations that you want to work with. In addition to that, There's there's stuff from government sites and so forth you could look for. So pretty much everything that you kind of want to find data for, you could find in a lot of places. But if you're creating a passion project and you want to make sure your stuff is as unique as possible, it's very fun to create your own data because you get really involved with your data visualizations and you know it's kind of unique. So basically when you're creating your own data, it's important that you work with it and have a good plan on how to create it for a data visualization. So it's fun to learn how to do that. And if you're comfortable working with data, I highly encourage that because it makes the data visualization so much more fun and something that you're passionate about. Oftentimes you're looking maybe at, maybe you could track your diet, for example. So on March, I was 150 pounds. So maybe in April, you're 145 pounds and you could collect that data on a weekly basis and show your progress. Those types of things that can give you some sort of excitement that you could be passionate about as far as working on your data. So one thing that I'll share with Tableau Public, and this was kind of shared before, but I'll show you the website. So all you have to do to download Tableau Public, if you haven't already, is enter your email address. So with your email address, you enter it and you download the app. It's absolutely free. It provides you pretty much everything you need to learn as far as Tableau Desktop. So you could pretty much access everything the same as you would for the high cost of Tableau Desktop. But if you wanted to try Tableau Desktop, you just you could download that and you have 2 weeks free for every single release. So if you want to compare and contrast the Tableau Public desktop versus the Tableau Public application rather than Tableau Desktop, you can kind of work on both side by side. But with Tableau Public, the limitation is that you have to save your data in Tableau Public on your basically your Tableau Public domain site or your profile site. But the great thing about that is that you could hide your data visualizations easily in Tableau Public by selecting the eye icon on the lower right-hand corner of each of your data visualizations. So if you don't want people to see what you're doing on Tableau Public, you could hide it and only people with the direct link could see what you're doing there. So you could share that with other people, but the public wouldn't be able to see that. So for example, I may have 60 vises that I published on Tableau Public, but the public may see only 40 of them. That's very common in our community, and it's okay to hide data visualizations. You have 10 gigabytes to work with. So that's a lot of space to learn Tableau as each visualization. If you have more than a couple megabytes, it's pretty uncommon unless you're using a lot of data. So just think of how much you could learn and how many hundreds and thousands of data visualizations you can create for free and publish to enhance your skill set. And share your viz. And we'll talk a little bit more about the community in a second, but I'll talk about what you could do because if you just publish a Tableau Public, what's going to happen is that you'll get a couple views on your viz. You may be lucky to get a favorite, but in order for you to have an enhanced profile and people understand and appreciate your work and followers, you're going to really have to engage the community for that because you'll have more eyes automatically on what you're doing data visualization wise. So getting social on Tableau is first is going to Twitter and searching for the hashtag DataFam. Sarah brought this up before, but I can't emphasize how important that is because our community is all revolved around the data fam. I'll even go one step further. If you see my Tableau, my Twitter account and basically you could follow anybody that's following that I'm following because what I'm looking for are people that are involved with the Tableau community or data visualization community. Many of those people will follow you back as long as you have a Twitter account. So what you need to do if you're creating a Twitter account is have it data focused, meaning it's primarily focused on Tableau. So it's okay to have multiple Twitter accounts, but for the one that you want to engage the data family, you want to make sure it's more Tableau focused. So basically you're tweeting mostly about Tableau related stuff. You're engaging with other members in the data fam. You're talking about their data visualizations and appreciating what they're doing. Sharing your work and what you find interesting on Tableau Public. So you don't have to tweet a lot. You could just like stuff. You could share stuff that's of interest. You could say great work when you find something that's great in the community. But most of the Tableau community is focused on Twitter. I consider Twitter more of like the family community where you don't just talk about data visualizations, but you get to know people in our community, and they share a little bit more than Tableau, but it's primarily focused around Tableau and data visualization. LinkedIn, I consider more like a casual Friday community. So it's more business focused. They're basically talking about data visualizations, sharing their visualizations, sharing blogs and so forth. But it's more of a business casual where you're not really engaging with people on a personal level. You're more engaging people on a more of a business teamwork type level. It's also a great thing. And if that's your primary interest, go for it and be part of that. I encourage people to be both part of the data fam community on Twitter and LinkedIn because it enhances your outreach. Meaning that you'll have a lot more people that will have access to your information and be able to see what you're producing and seeing your involvement with the community. Because when you're involved with the community, we want to be part of that with you. We want to be part of your journey. It's so exciting to see new people come up and work and really want to be involved with our community. So it's so important that you're seen and out there so we could help support you. So either on Twitter and LinkedIn, but Twitter is the family community, I would say, and LinkedIn is the casual Friday community. If you don't want to be part of LinkedIn or Twitter, the other place to go would be Tableau community forums. As I'll share this with you a little bit. Let's see. And I close that screen. But Tableau community forums basically brings you to people that have questions and answers on Tableau. And you get to talk about that with them. It's not really a data fam type community. There's no family vibe. It's not really a casual Friday vibe. It's more of a business community. So if you don't want to be part of any social media and don't want engagement that way, but that's not really a place you would be sharing visualizations and so forth. So if you want to enhance your profile and get feedback on data visualizations, I highly encourage you to be part of the Twitter data fam or LinkedIn Tableau and or data fam. So here are a couple of my parting notes before I show a couple more things. There are so many free resources out there for every skill level. So if you consider yourself an expert or the newest of the newbies, there's just so many things out there that you are able to access, developed by our community. And there's just so many things growing in every single day. And I'll show you a little bit of a great place, because if you're on Twitter or LinkedIn, your feeds get really overwhelming really quick. So Tableau has developed this great resource on a weekly basis now, where it shows the data fam community roundup. So I would definitely look for this on Twitter or LinkedIn, or just follow the community blog, because it shows that highlights the best content that we see each week from our Tableau community. And it comes from Zen masters, or it comes from people that are just part of our community creating content that makes a difference. So it breaks down some of the best content covering the week. So for example, this last one covers Tableau calculations. So it's a playlist on learning Tableau calculations. Everybody needs that. Even if you're an expert, there's always something to learn with calculations. Maybe you've been doing it wrong, or there's a more efficient way to do it. Those are great things to learn. Design a dashboard design checklist, which is very helpful. Steve Wexler, Zen Master Hall of Famer, provides design tips as well regarding colors. Autumn, who's a community all-star, providing ideas on sharing her output and a process and execution as far as her organization for creating data visualizations. And Zach Bouders does a podcast pretty much every week covering a new member of our community or an ambassador or Zen master or somebody like that. And last week he covered Gafar Shah, who's just an amazing community member as well as a data visualizer. It also shows you upcoming events. So in the next week, including this event, Chennai Tug. So there's so many events that we see all the time. And if you're following a feed on Twitter or LinkedIn, there's no way you can catch them all. So this is just a great gift to us, being able to see this in all in one spot on a weekly basis. It also gives you links to the Tableau user groups, and also brings you other events with a little bit more detail about those events. Other thing to be inspired by is looking at some of the visualizations that became a visit of the day or highlighted visualizations here. And it breaks that down here, and you can click on them and access them and see how great those visualizations are. They recently shared a Tableau public gallery, which is a beautiful virtual gallery covering some of the best works created over the course of time that began in Tableau conference, but became enhanced just last week with newer data visualizations. And finally, it breaks down some of the best community projects there are, including SDG Viz project, Iron Quest from those that presented before in Vinodh, and just so many other things that you could jump into. And it gives you a brief outline of what that project's about and see whether or not you want to be part of that community and contribute to it, or if you want to browse it and see more and potentially participate in a future event. But those are all things that will help you be very big in our big part of our community and understand our community more. But I can't share this enough and say this is a great thing for you to not be overwhelmed. You could see this every week. It's published every week, and it's just a great roundup of our community stuff that we could see. Focus on improving your weakest areas and feel free to try new designs or data sets. One thing I really learned over time is that I was very good at certain type of data visualizations, but there are work data visualizations. As soon as I became part of the community, I didn't do anything related to work visualizations because I wanted to focus on my weakest areas and improve those. And it was a struggle in the beginning because I've done the same thing for so many years. But if you do a lot of work vizes, what you learn by working with new designs and data sets, it's really inspiring for you, and it gets the juices flowing for you to create better work visualizations. And there's so much you could bring back to work. And it's also fun to get feedback and share with the community and see your profile increase based on your consistency of work and your improvement. So people will comment and say great things to you, and you'll feel like you're really part of something really special that you wouldn't have the opportunity to be part of before. As I mentioned before, we really want you. We want more people in our community. We want to make sure it's as inclusive as possible, meaning pretty much it doesn't matter where you come from, what your background is. We're seeing expansion in basically any community or sub-community coming into our data fam. One thing is that primarily we speak English. So it's unfortunate that if you feel that you have trouble speaking English, but we don't, if you try to speak English, even if you feel your English isn't good, we don't care. We just want to see you and have you part of the fun. We're excited to have you on board, and other communities are focused on, there's so many different variations of our community that could be of great inspiration to you to get better and feel your personal and professional growth. Also participate in special projects that share data like Makeover Monday, Iron Quest, which doesn't often share data, but it gives you an idea of what to process and what to gather. And often it's very good practice because in real life, you're working you're not working with cleaned or prepared data. So creating a data set on your own and working on that data set will make you not only a better data visualizer, it will help you understand data better. And it'll make you a better analyst if that's your focus, subsequently wanting to be an analyst. And also when you're using your own data, you really feel like you're doing something of importance to you. And it generally makes your product much better in the outrun. So SDG Viz project. So it's great initiative with more complex data sets usually than the Makeover Monday data sets, but it's a great community with awesome feedback and awesome emphasis on their community members, sharing with Twitter and LinkedIn because of the work that people put in and the great efforts you could see. I also, one other note is I would make sure that if you're newer to the data community and newer to the initiatives, it's very helpful to work on projects that a lot of people are participating in, because you'll get more feedback, you'll get more eyes on your visualizations, and you'll have the better opportunity for growth. So it's very important for that. And of course, there's new initiatives popping up all the time. So if you're on Twitter or LinkedIn, you'll see them. Or if you're checking out the Data Fam Community Roundup each week, you'll see them quite a bit as well. And that's basically it for me. You could find me on social media. My Twitter account, because somebody unfortunately took my real name before, so I added one after it. So I'm Adam Mico1. On Tableau Public, I'm just Adam Mico. And also on LinkedIn, I'm Adam Mico. So I'm pretty easy to find. Reach out if you have any questions. We're happy to discuss anything with you and help you on your journey. Do we have any questions, Vinodh?
No, Adam, we don't have any questions. So, yeah, thank you. Thank you, Adam. That was like really helpful. So the whole idea of Chennai TUG being restarted after 2 years is to get more people in Chennai to come into, to participate in the community. So I think your session will definitely encourage them and it'll guide them on how to get into the community. It was like really helpful. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Okay, so let me share my screen. Okay. So yeah, so we are done with the sessions. So it was like really useful. I learned a lot and hope you all would have learned a lot too. And as I said earlier, like data fam, that's the theme of today's meetup. So I think we discussed a lot about it, and I hope a lot of people start participating in the community. So, and there are some exciting things happening. So in May we have the Tableau Live. So Tableau Live is a free virtual event by Tableau, and it will be a day of learning, sharing, and networking. So try make some time and participate in any of these sessions. Probably in Asia Pacific that's happening on May 11th. So that will fit our timing. So try and participate. And next thing is for Chennai TUG, we have a lot of things planned in the coming months. So for all the people who have stayed till the end, you'll be eligible to participate in that lot for winning the $120 e-learning license, which the winner will be announced in the next TUG session. And yeah, so if this is the last point is especially for the Chennai people, if you want to get participate in the Tableau community and become part of the data fam, you can always reach out to me at Twitter or through mail. So I'm looking forward to connect with all of you. And I have a few Tableau opportunities which was asked to be shared in the meetup. So Citibank, it's hiring a few Tableau developers in Bangalore and Pune locations. So you can reach out to me. I can guide you on the exact job descriptions, on the IDs where you will have to apply for. And there was a request from Hansini from Singapore. So she in Standard Chartered Bank, there's a Tableau opening that's for a senior manager role in Chennai. So if any of you are looking for any opportunities or any of your contacts, you can reach out to Hansini Veerraghavan at sc.com too, and she can help you with that. And here are some of the hashtags in Twitter, which was already discussed by Adam and Sarah. So if you want to jump into the community, you can start with DataFam, and all the other things are like the community projects. So once you're into DataFam, you'd eventually come across all these different community initiatives. So that is all I have. Thank you all for participating, and thank you to the speakers who took some time early in their day, especially from US and UK, and sharing their knowledge. So thanks a lot, Brian, Adam, and Sarah. Do we have any questions? I think we are good. So reach out to me if you need anything. And there were a few questions which are not answered. So I'll be sending out a mail to the participants for the unanswered questions. Thank you all for joining. I think we are right on time. Thank you, Adam. And, thank you, Brian.